Hello and welcome. This is going to be a versus video between the Böker Plus Trance 42 and the Böker Plus XS. Now this was a request by Milo Fayne, or Milo Fayne, however you pronounce that, and really that's the gist of it. YouTube, it's about you, so you put in a request, any kind of knife review versus video, and I'll try my very best to uphold that. Right, let's get down into the verses. Big issue for a lot of people is price. Price can make or break whether you buy a knife or not. I'm going to swap them round. The XS is cheaper. It's currently runs at about £39. I think I picked mine up for a little bit less than that. Whereas the Trance 42 now with a bit of a price hike to £48, so you're paying nearly £50 for this knife now. They're both Chad Los Banos designs. You can tell by the CLB markings on both of them. He's a very good designer. I do like his designs. It's just a shame that the designs make it into these knives. I mean, could you imagine if his designs were made with, I don't know, S30V or VG10 or with titanium scales, things like that? I'm sure that if he was offered much better materials to have the finished product, then they would undoubtedly come out incredible. You only have to look at the Subcom 42 to realise that. But we're not talking about that knife, we're talking about these two. The weight is another factor, and the XS is heavier. Alright, it's fairly heavy, and I think the reasons for that are that it has G10 handle scales, which they are not. There's not much light here, I'm afraid, but they're not they're not skeletonized inside. They're solid, but there are steel liners in there just to give the knife a bit more strength, rigidity. Whereas the Trance 42, there are cutouts there. There is a liner on the other side, but that's not skeletonized. But overall, the XS is heavier at 3.8 ounces or 109.6 grams. And the Trance 42 being 3.2 ounces or 91.7 grams. So it's about the 3 ounce mark, which is good for an everyday carry kind of knife. The overall length, hopefully you can see from the video that the XS is longer. And the scales, as I've just recently mentioned, the XS has the G10 and the Trance 42 has the FRN, fiberglass reinforced nylon, with the stainless steel bead blasted combination part of the scale as well on the other side. Grippiness, the Trance 42 isn't that grippy, but the cutouts do help, and the other side, well, we won't even go there, obviously that's slidey as anything, but the XS is just very, very slightly more grippy, but it's G10 on both sides, you see, but very, very slightly more grippy. It's still, I don't think it's even tenacious grippy, so they're both not that grippy anyway. The deployment, they both have these ambidextrous thumb studs. The Trance 42, I suppose you could melt that off or use a set of pliers and turn that off maybe, whereas the XS does have a Torx star screw bit in there for you to just unscrew them. The deployment, you've probably seen the reviews of these, but the Trance 42, it locks at 90 degrees and then deploys fully, and it's quite an easy-ish to deploy knife. Not many problems. The XS, on the other hand, is quite difficult. It's quite hard to get past the initial back spring. Sorry about that. That wasn't a mobile. That was actually a home phone. So there's no way of me turning that off. I just had to pause the video and take the call. So we're back onto this, and as I say, as I was trying to say, it stops at the 90-degree angle. It's difficult to get past that initial backspring, and then did you hear that? It really clicks into place. It almost gives you false pretenses that the knife is a locking knife, but it's not a locking knife. It's just got a very, very strong backspring, one of the strongest I've ever experienced, and that clicking there as well. But it doesn't lock, but it's a very, very strong backspring. And just for good measure, you've got this finger choil here, just in case the blade did start to move over your hand. The Trance 42 has got this little flipper part here to stop that, and with it's quite easy to over travel, but it's basically the Trance 42 but a legal version, because it still has this frame lock bar, but they've machined it so that it's just got a little hole in there for the it's got a little detent for the ball to slot in without the bar moving over. So I suppose on the non-legal version, the locking version, you could probably use it as a flipper, but on this one you can't. Anyway, that's the deployment. Blade shape, please put it in the comments if you think I'm wrong, but I've always kind of thought these blade shapes, where it's got the belly and then it's got this angle on both of them, I've always thought that they were reverse tantos, because they're like tantos, but you know, on the spine of the blade. You could say they're modified clip points, I suppose, but I would refer to these as reverse tantos. The blade steel, it says it on the XS is 440C, and on the Trance 42 it's OS 8. For both of them now, it's different. The OS 8 steel, I think I can get sharper on this knife than the 440C, but it doesn't say as sharp for long as the XS, and that's because the 440C, in theory, is a better steel. It's one of the highest end stainless steels, whereas OS 8 it's apples and oranges, but it's just a little bit, it's just not quite as good for edge retention, just slightly. And coupled to the fact that the XS has this coating, this black coating, which also has on the pocket clip, which I'll mention very soon. The XS, it's not DLC, but it is an okay coating. As you can see, you can put finger marks on it and things, but it's nothing compared to a paramilitary 2 coating or DLC or anything like that. Whereas the Trance 42 is actually bead blasted, and you know my feelings on bead blasted, guys. I just don't. I'd rather have the shiny, polished satin blade than a bead blasted. I really would. It baffles me why these knife manufacturers do it so much. I understand it might strengthen the blade, and with all the processes that it has to go through and things, but at the same time it does open up the pores to the blade steel, and as you can see, and you've probably seen my rust watch video, this has had a few speckles of rust that I've put WD-40 on. I've put the silicone spray, so just bear that in mind. You've got better steel and a coating, or you've got steel that's opened up bare and not as good. Still good, but not as good steel. Right, both made in China. They are Böker Plus knives. Most Böker Plus knives are made in China. We're going to talk about the jimping. There is a slight jimping on the Trance 42, just on the finger choil area there. There's nothing in the finger choil on the XS. You can see that it says China there, look. I don't think it says China on the Trance 42 though. Anyway, the jimping on the blade spine is very good on the XS, very good. I don't know why it has these holes in. Probably you could lash it to something, maybe, but I would question the size of those holes. Might even cut weight, but you'd probably put a few more in. Either way, the jimping is very good on the XS, very good, very aggressive. I cannot say the same for the Trance 42. The jimping is very minimal, very fine, practically useless, doesn't give you hardly any grip. It does have some better jimping here, or cutouts, and I probably would hold it there rather than there. So rust issues, I talked about that. I've had no problems with the XS, but a few issues on the Trance 42. The pocket clip on the XS is a tip up only, right or left side carry. On the Trance 42, it's tip up or tip down, right side carry only. And that's right or left side carry only. And the pocket clips themselves, I do prefer the XS. It just feels a little bit stronger and things, but I just do prefer it. Comfortability, I'd have to give it to the XS. Once you get past the initial strength of needing to open it, it's very comfortable. It just fits in the hand. There's a slight curve there for the palm, and a curve on the cutout for the scales, and for my hands it just fits a lot more comfortably than the Trance 42, okay, which I think is a little bit shorter. And when you go to close the knife, because of this frame lock bar that they've left in, sometimes your finger skin can get caught in there. So it's a small point, but it's a point. Now manufacturing, I haven't had any manufacturing on the issues on the XS. It came, well, there were a couple of spots there on the blade itself, but apart from that, it's been absolutely fine. The Trance 42, I have heard from other knife reviewers that they've had issues with these holes that are cut out, and a couple of other things. So, you know, take that as you will. My overall opinion, I have to give it to the XS. All right, I have to give it to the XS. Trance 42 is still a nice knife, but it does have some issues, and it doesn't have the features that are on it aren't up to scratch in my knife reviewer opinion. All right, it's got a very decent blade shape, very useful, but just the features that are on it, like I say, they just don't come up to scratch. The XS, the reason why I'd pick this over the Trance 42, one, it's cheaper. By £10, by $15 or $20, it's cheaper. It's got better steel, 440C steel, it's better, and it's coated. It's more comfortable, has the better jimping, and it has a more solid lockup. And that's just what you want from a slip joint knife, a non-locking UK legal knife. You want a very firm lockup. Some people will complain that it's too firm, but in a society where where the type of knife you can only carry is a non-locking, it means that there is more danger to the end user than somebody that has no regard for the locking or non-locking laws. Okay, so it's actually putting the risk at the user, and for that reason as well, I would give the positive to the XS. The issues for the Trance 42, the jimping is minimal, the rust issues, the steel is just not as good, it's got the bead blasting, in my opinion it's not as comfortable, not as grippy, and it's more expensive. So there you go, hope you've enjoyed this versus video. Please put it in the, thumbs up the video, whatever, comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff, and put a suggestion. If you've seen a few knives in my collection, or you've seen a few out and about, put it in the put it in the comments. Say, could you do a video of such and such, and I'll try my very best to. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Take care.